It's such a pleasure to have you here and welcome you to our new space in Astoria. We're really happy to be here. We are the Borough-wide Arts Council for all of you artists that live in Queens. We have many programs, some of which I've seen many of you attending. I see a lot of familiar faces. It's great to see new faces in here.
Seeing the arts alive and well and growing both in his district and throughout Queens is just about the most exciting thing that we can see. So really quickly, I just want to give a quick hand to Lynn and to Audrey for making this happen. So
basically Third Space was developed out of a need for artists like you guys here in Queens to have a space to really come together, share works in progress. It's part soapbox, part networking events. We really welcome your proposals. So if you have some work in progress you'd like to show, if you want to host a workshop with other artists, meet like-minded folks, just an event like this, give me a shout. I'm so honored and excited to introduce this next woman. She's an amazing artist, she's a writer, she's an organizer, she's a huge advocate for the arts here in Queens, and we're so honored to kick off our series for Third Space with her. So everyone please give a warm welcome to Audrey Dimola.
Thank you people for being here. This is really amazing. As you guys may or may not know, I'm born and raised here in Astoria, LIC, so Queens is in my blood, Queens is my life. I'm here because of all of you, because of all of your initiatives and wonderful projects, and we're here to come together and celebrate, make connections. We have the Queen's Poet Laureate, Paolo Javier, who is going to talk to all you guys and say what's up.
I've been representing Queens since 2010 as your Poet Laureate. What does that mean to be the Queen's Poet Laureate? To be a Poet Laureate of a massive borough like Queens. I can let you know that it's a truly rewarding experience. After having my daughter, probably the most rewarding experience of my life thus far. It's been that meaningful. It's put me in touch with amazing people like Audrey, kindred spirits like Audrey, and certainly space like this space, Queens Council on the Arts. I've also used this opportunity to get to know Queens and Queens literary communities in greater detail. But it also really allows me to get in touch with organizations that for the longest time have been representing artists and language artists within the different communities in Queens. And I've made it a point of my laureateship to try as much as I could to partner with these organizations that have been rooted in the community and really working with the different Queens communities. And I'm your Poet Laureate till the end of the year, till New Year's Eve. And I don't know what I transform into after. I'm curating the Poets in the Gallery series at the Queens Museum of Art. I don't know if you guys know about this, but the Queens Museum of Art is expanding at a time when a lot of arts institutions are downsizing or, descaling a bit. The Queens Museum of Art is expanding, which speaks to, right, how vital this museum has been to this borough and how vital they've been without announcing too much about it, right, which I think seems to be the great identity of Queens.
We are going to start the program, ladies and gents. First, we have here, sitting right in the front very conveniently, is Mr. Richard Jeffrey Newman, who is representing First Tuesdays, a neighborhood reading series in Queens.
The format of the series is an open mic and then a featured reader. For the open mic, people come, and one of the reasons I call it a neighborhood reading series is because it's just, I enjoy, and I think it has a very neighborhood feel. I mean, there are some people here whose faces I know and people whom I know who have read there. It's a very welcoming space. We have poets who come, and fiction writers and memoir writers for the open mic, who come from all ranges, all levels of accomplishment, all levels, people who are just starting out. Last month, for example, I think he's a 12-year-old boy came with his older brother and read a poem, an absolutely remarkable poem for his grandmother. There's a woman who's been coming for 3 years who reads the poetry written by her mother who passed away about 5 years ago or so. And she just comes every month to keep her mother's memory alive and reads her mother's poetry. And we've got people who come read who have published books, people who are just starting out. The only other thing I will say about it, because I think it's important to give credit where credit is due, I inherited this reading series. I didn't start it. Some of you may have heard the name Jackson Heights Poetry Festival, which was started by a woman named Marina Yaffe about 7 years ago. And this series was part of the Jackson Heights Poetry Festival. So this is for my son, a kind of prayer. Just before his mother pushed him through herself, hard enough to split who she was, wide enough for him to enter the world, I touched the top of my son's head. And after he was born, the midwife, Vivian, I think it was, held my wife's umbilical cord in a loop for me to cut, which I did, freeing our new boy's body to enter the name we had waiting for him. I think it would be very exciting to find ways of creating synergy between and among all of the things that are going on. You know, whatever that looks like, however it happens, and not just synergy between and among literary events, but there's so much else. I mean, there's music that's going on, there's visual art that's going on, there's dance that's going on, and to create really sort of, you know, kind of an artistic community where people are talking to each other, because my own experience in other places is often, you know, the dancers don't talk to the painters, and the painters don't talk to the writers, and the writers don't talk to the musicians, and everyone's sort of busy promoting themselves and doing their own thing. And I think it would be good if, you know, we kind of got the message that if we all promote each other in all of the various ways that you can say, mean the word promote, it just would help us all.
Next, we have reps from one of our much needed new bookstores in Astoria. So we have Claire LaPlaca and DeVay from Enigma Bookstore in Astoria.
Hi, my name is Claire LaPlaca. I'm one of the owners of Enigma Bookstore. Hugh Bramer, my fiance, is the other one. This is DeVay.
Hello, everyone.
Enigma is a little bit different than your traditional bookstore, and the reason why we did that is we kind of wanted something very much out of the box. We're a niche bookstore. We're predominantly focused on science fiction, fantasy, and mystery. The reason why we did that is most of what people don't think of when they think of literary fiction, they don't think of our books. And we think that's horrible. What we are is a geek community. We love geeks, nerds, all of that. That's who I am, that's how I was raised, grew up, and that's what she's slowly becoming. What we do is we have made it sort of a bookstore / event space. We have a lot of events. We do author reading signings. One of the things that we do in Enigma is I don't believe that you have to sell 1 million copies of a book to be able to speak. I think most writers have something to say. And we're inviting people who even are self-published to come to join us in Enigma and present to different people. We also do a lot of other things like spoken word, which Nikki is going to talk a little bit about. DeVay is a local rapper in the Queens area from Woodside.
Basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to pull like all walks of life to relate to rap, because rap isn't like one path. It's basically poetry. And that's what I want to bring. You know, I want to bring that to a lot of people, that rap is poetry.
It's a huge experience, and I'm amazed at how many people are supporting us. And I think as long as we support them as well, we're a very open space. If you want to talk to me, I have 40 million cards, and I want to talk to you. Right. We're trying to create opportunities, not trying to discourage people. And I think that's what works for the business plan.
Yeah. Now we're going to jump into the print side. Also right here in the front row is the editor and founder of Queen's own Newtown Literary Journal. Please welcome Tim Fredrick.
We've had 2 issues so far. This came out last fall. This came out in spring. Our next issue is being sent to the printer next week and will be due out in November. So we print usually about 25 poets to prose writers per issue. Each issue is 150 pages, give or take. We have it in print version as well as in ebook versions. And really what we're looking for from writers is just what you have. When I started the journal, I was wondering, am I going to discover what this Queen aesthetic is, or what is writing in Queens like? And there is no like one type of Queens writing. What is great about it is its diversity, which is pretty Queens in nature. This is not just Western Queens, this is all of Queens. And we try to pick and select and make sure that we have the entire borough represented. So we have print, we have electronic versions. Next fall/winter is going to be our first themed issue, which is going to be guest edited by our production editor, Catherine Garrigan, over there. And it's going to be a speculative fiction. So we're very excited to sort of branch out into a themed issue, and we haven't figured out what the design exactly is going to be like, but we're flowing with the idea of having a little spaceship flying over the So we're really excited about that. We have a lot of great ideas, But the journal really has sort of taken off. There's been a lot of interest, but that can only stay if people keep submitting and people buy the journal. So everything that we make from journal sales and donations go back into doing all of the stuff that we do. This fall, we have started 2 new programs, which we're really excited about. One is the Queens Young Artists and Poets Contest. It is a poetry and prose contest for students in grades 3 through 12 in Queens School, or if they live in Queens and go to school somewhere else. And we also have classes and workshops that we've started this fall. We're trying to figure out what it is that the Queens literary community would like in some sort of low-cost classes or workshops. So we welcome your ideas and what you want. We don't want to just offer a class and it not be useful. We're making these connections. One of the things I love about Queens and the literary community here is that it's not competitive. So it's not like I do better by pushing you down, by pushing you down or seeing you fail. And, we have a very, as I get to know people, it's very much a rising tide floats all boats. And I just want to see more of that. I want to see more like just us knowing, people who are running things, so we can get the word out and support each other.
There is a little tiny URL, link tinyurl.com/queenslit. If you're having fun tonight, if you want to help your community, please share that link. It has all the people who are here tonight presenting and even more than that. So as everyone has been saying, the theme is we need to help. We need to keep getting the word out. We need to keep strengthening this community. So next we have reps from another reading series that was once in Sunnyside, now coming to Astoria. So please welcome John Rice, Ann Fredrick, and Brian Kim from BERNICE Reading Series.
Oh yes, I'm wearing a tie on a Friday night. Hi, I'm John Rice. I'm with the BERNICE Writers Collective, which started in 2010, formed out of various graduates of the Queens College MFA program. In 2012, we founded the BERNICE Reading Series, partially to give us some space to present work to the community, and partially to just bring the community to us. I'm a little lazy, I don't like to walk. We've seen this series grow just so much. It's given us a chance to, yes, be up on stage and revise and work, but also to continue to communicate with people, which I think is just so great. I brought along with me 2 of the mysterious Bernicians, as we like to call ourselves, who are going to give you a little sample of what you might see on a typical BERNICE evening. Up first, Mr. Brian Kim.
So I watch a film from the Criterion Collection and then I write a haiku about that. And so I call it, appropriately enough, Criterion Collection as haiku. And I started this whole Tumblr thing. So the first one is based on Lars von Trier's Antichrist. So certainly it's not very light, but here we go. My dear, you cannot outfox nature. When evil crows, chaos will reign. And the second one is from, they're very short, that I just wrote most recently. It's for Chris Marker's La Jati, and it goes like this. Tree trunks trap time, rings scar like memory, etched loops no one can escape. Thank you.
Look at him memorizing his words. I'm hiding behind
It's like 9-1.
Miss Ann Fredrick.
I'm just going to read a short piece. I tend to write flash fiction. The title is Andy Marie and My Mother. My mother counted calories. Throughout my childhood, I would find her tabulations scrawled on the edges of newspapers, table napkins, lunch boxes, and McCall's magazines. Once she used a birthday hat I had saved. 100, 200, 100, 500 were scribbled on the tail of a gray monkey holding a large pink birthday candle. These numbers were one of those things that let me know as a young girl where she had been by herself, in the world without me. She got her caloric values from a small red booklet whose cover featured a muscle-bound couple in matching leopard-patterned bathing suits. It was the one Jack LaLanne recommended in his TV show that my mother turned on but never exercised to.
What I would like to see and hopefully this happens in the next few years, is a lit crawl, a Queens lit crawl.
Oh, nice.
Manhattan has one.
Yes.
Brooklyn has one. Why don't we have one? Because a lit crawl means that there is a neighborhood that finds literature so essential to the everyday life of those people that multiple venues within walking distance of each other are willing to like serve beer and let people read some stuff for a couple hours. So, Queens lit crawl.
Last rep before our little intermission. Miss Deborah has a monopoly going on, actually. She has 2 reading series now in Queens. So Deborah Emmett is representing Res Reading Series and the Richmond Hill Library Series.
Thank you all. This is great. It's great to see this many people concerned about literature in Queens on a Friday night. I want to tell you a little story about the Res Reading Series because I think it's emblematic of what's really great about Queens and what makes a little bit of difficulty for us to organize, but I think this all ends up being a success story. One of the things that I learned when I first started the Res Reading Series in 2008 or 9, I'm not sure exactly what the date was. There are a number of problems. One is people object to where venues can be, so we were in a church basement. Many people said, why would we want to come to a church basement, especially when there's no parking? Which is true of too much of Queens, right? So we stayed there a couple of years. We were very successful there. We filled the seats every time. And we wanted to bring published writers to Queens because at that time there were no bookstores that were hosting published writers who could get in touch with readers who really love to talk about books. Kew Gardens has an amazingly large literate community that had no access to a bookstore. There are none in Kew Gardens, and there's no library in Kew Gardens. So the Res Reading Series filled a really big void at that time. And again, no parking. I have to remind you of this because this was a problem. So, and people objected to having to come to a church basement. I'm not sure why. So we moved. One of the reasons we moved was because eventually they were going to want money from us, which we couldn't afford. It was we as me. Then we moved to, this is the next place we moved, Maple Grove Cemetery.
Wow.
There was parking. but also a very large community room that was gorgeous. Then the other thing about Queens that you have to know is, at the time that we were setting up the reading series, and this is off of a C-SPAN show that my wife and I, Suzanne, were watching, New York State, at that time, was listed 49th in the country, a per ratio population to bookstores. New York State, which is the capital of publishing, has the fewest number of bookstores per people, other than Mississippi. So this was something we saw as a real problem. But the success is, Odredex has been very gracious, opened their doors. We do a monthly reading series. Many of you have been there. Some of you have read. Some of you are going to read. And we have now expanded into the Richmond Hill Public Library. So I was asked to be their vice president of Friends of Richmond Hill Library, which meant that they really wanted somebody to come in and do events. And then in January 13th, we have a really great show. And I hate to sound like Ed Sullivan, but it's a really great show. We're bringing in the woman who founded the Afghan Women's Writing Project, Masha Hamilton. And she's going to be reading from her novel. And the women, a couple of the women from Afghanistan will be in town. They're going to read. And they'll explain the mentorship program that they do online with these women who risk their lives to be mentored to write in Kabul and Kandahar.
What do you feel like defines this literary community in Queens?
Well, I think what defines it is what it needs. And that's more of this. And I have a dream, which is 3 years from now, we have a Queens World Literature Day. And that we use the Flushing Town Hall, which is the perfect space for that. And we just, everybody here should be involved in it. Everybody here should be reading or writing or sharing or doing something. And I think it would be such a phenomenal way to show our love for each other as writers and readers. Because, you know, this is not something that I saw 4 or 5 years ago when I started the series. There weren't this number of people willing to show up. And it really was Queens Council on the Arts with their quill program that helped me see you know, the possibilities for what we could do. So Queens Council on the Arts also deserves a huge thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I was just telling Nancy how I'm not really part of a community. I don't really seek communities because I just don't like belonging to anything, truthfully. I don't like teams, I don't like partnerships, I don't like that crap. But I really like sitting here and seeing faces that are familiar to me because I do have stage fright. I used to have terrible stage fright when I was a singer and songwriter. And it's much easier as a writer because I'm also a teacher, so I don't care. But I do want to talk very briefly about Boundless Tales, and my name is Zelaya, and I just want to thank you for having me and for creating this amazing event, and for QCA for having us and hosting us, and for you guys being here. I started Boundless in September of 2011, and it was basically me figuring out how to create a blog page. And desperately emailing writers and who I respected and begging them to read their material. And admittedly, I gave up like 5 months into it because I couldn't find people to submit. And I told Audrey, and I felt like I was confessing this horrible, deep, terrible thing. And she's like, oh, don't feel that way. And she encouraged me. So Boundless is what it is, because of the support of people like Audrey and many others here. Mike Stahl is here. He was one of the first to grace the stage of Astoria. So now we're in our 3rd year and we have submissions, and I can even do themed readings. Whereas before I tried to do themed readings and people were like, who the F are you even? I'm going to craft my story based on your ridiculous November whatever theme. Okay, so now we actually have quality submissions, and sometimes we do reject things that we don't like, but usually we love what we read. So if you are a writer, please submit to us.
What makes it worth it doing it in Queens?
Oh, well, seeing the people on stage and seeing the most unassuming characters getting up there and blowing your mind, basically.
Yeah.
Like you know what they're going to read, because I always ask to see what's going to be read because of a horrible thing that happened for the first reading that I won't talk about. But, and I think half of you know what that is, but we'll talk about it another time. So it's seeing this amazing talent, these unassuming people who come and they're so humble, they have no idea how great they are, and then they read. And that's what I love.
These are 2 of my newest friends that I'm really happy to have here. So please welcome Bridget Bartolini and Samantha Innes, representing Boro Story Project.
Hey everyone, I'm really happy to be here because I'm feeling a lot of Queens love. And it was really my love for Queens and my neighborhood of South Richmond Hill that inspired me to start the Boro Story Project. I grew up there in the same house that my grandparents lived in, so as a 3rd generation South Richmond Hiller, I grew up hearing a lot of stories about the neighborhood and a lot of awareness of how quickly things change in New York City. So the Boro Story Project is a community organization that produces events to showcase stories and art inspired by the neighborhoods of New York City. So it's not just Queens, we go all over the 5 boroughs, and it's all about creating platforms for people to connect with our neighbors and our neighborhoods. So we have storytellers, writers, poets, musicians, all different kinds of artists who have pieces that are about their neighborhood, and they will share those pieces in these live events. And then we also have community participation with open mics and participatory activities. We just launched in April of this year. Our first series was called I'm Talking Here, Storytelling with a New York Accent. It was a 5-part series, so we traveled through the 5 boroughs, and we had a storyteller, natives of the borough, a transplant, and a musician with a musical ode to the borough, and a clip from the documentary called If These Knishes Could Talk, which is a definitive documentary on the New York accent. And our next event is Voices of Jamaica. It's actually tomorrow at Jamaica Center for Arts and Learning. So this event is showcasing stories, poetry, music, and food of Jamaica, Queens.
This collaboration, I am the founder and artistic director of an organization that I started called Art, Food, and Soul, based in Jamaica, Queens. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the arts in Jamaica, Queens, but we do have a very deep, rich history. I'm born, raised, and never left Jamaica, Queens. Pretty much my mission is to just uplift, engage, motivate artists in the Jamaica, Queens community and to invite other communities and other boroughs to come to the Jamaica area that have positive art to kind of just build on the rich history that we have in jazz and also hip hop. That's part of the foundation that many people are accustomed to with Jamaica, Queens. So this collaboration is something new. I'm bringing to the area storytelling, and I always love food. I'm a foodie, but I see food as art, so that's what Art, Food, and Soul is about. It's all different forms of art, including food as a culinary art, and the soul part is just the audience being able to engage about the art and how it motivated them and encouraged them. Just bringing more positivity into the Jamaica, Queens community.
Our other much needed bookstore, we have Lexi Beach here from Astoria Bookshop.
I will start by telling you about the first question that everyone asked me, so why did you open a bookstore in Astoria? And it started, the idea started when I worked in publishing for a long time, and I was in a job that was not the right fit for me, and started hearing from colleagues and friends in the neighborhood that Astoria really needs a bookstore. I hadn't realized that there wasn't one at the time, and started looking. It started as daydreaming, what will my imaginary bookstore be called? And then started doing the research and talking to bookstore owners in other boroughs and looking at demographics and census data and market research and taking entrepreneurship classes. And then a year and a half later, I opened up on 31st Street. And I know that many of you have been there already because I recognize a lot of faces tonight. So thank you all for coming by the store. I think that the other question that I get a lot is, so how do you think that a bookstore is going to survive? Because everyone thinks that bookstores don't have a place in the world and they're dying. And obviously, many of you are not among that people who think that. But I think that besides the fact that I don't think that that's an accurate statement anymore, I think that a contemporary bookstore, to survive, it needs to engage with the community. It needs to offer books that are of interest to the local customers. It needs to be a local store and offer events and work with other local organizations, partner with people like Newtown Literary. We've now basically sold out of the first 2 volumes of Newtown Literary, and we'll have the 3rd one for sale there when it is published. But that kind of partnership with local organizations, I think, is really important for a community-focused bookstore.
Wendy Angelo with Peggy Robles Alvarado, Eric, advocate of words Maldonado, and Mark A. Vigo for Canvas of Words.
Canvas of Words is a showcase that we created to open a platform for emerging poets and also visual artists in the borough of Queens. As a writer and a member of the New York City Latina Writers Group, I felt that the Queens presence in the poetry community is very weak. And I experienced that at the shows. So through a collaboration, we created this show. Peggy is the producer of the show too. And we wanted to create a platform for emerging writers. So what we did was a showcase of distinguished and emerging poets, and we gave the opportunity of 3 visual artists to create paintings of the poems that they were performed that night. Like our friends from the Fiber Project said, I have the blessing of having so many poets from different boroughs come to Queens and help the emerging poets with this show. The show created so much buzz that we're gonna do it annually. That's the idea. I also launched my production company, which is here to help emerging writers and visual artists and photographers from the borough of Queens to participate in the show. Right now we're working in the next show, possibly March, and then the next canvas in October.
To all the boys in college who decided not to date me after finding out I was a single mother. A girl with a kid has too many problems, you said. I'm not ready to deal with all that drama, you said. I'm not ready to be a daddy, you said, after I proudly declared I was daughter to a little girl who loved to dance and finger paint. Disappointment dominated your face. All possibilities of becoming your girl lost. I was now placed in a different group, a new bracket, a special contact list reserved for pretty hoes. Undeserving of your intimate whispers over candlelight. Unfit for the caress of your fingertips, because to you, my curves were baptized by fire. Seasoned too soon, and your hands were still wet with post-pubescent inexperience and sweat.
She is sequacious. She is salsa. I began to study her language on my own. Over the course of burnt books and charcoal artistry, I found remnants of the childhood of her greatest grandparents. Gramps in his Bantu dialect was learning how to harness this drum called the makuta, a yuca, and the bembe. Grandma was charming LaPlaca and teaching wires how to manipulate sound. They had met during the slave trade that brought the people from the Congo over to the Caribbean and took the indigenous population of Latin America over to Africa. They found rhythm in the oceans. Abuelito's percussions would ward off evil spirits, and Abuelita's melody would string along good luck and peace.
I nurture, I feed, I hope to grow this thing inside me, what they call that poetry shit. I eat, sleep, drink, and breathe my words, not for the sake of conformity, but completely, in spite of it. So I don't care if you're into it or not. If it's not for you, that's okay. I can dig it. But don't go knocking my hustle, what they call that poetry shit. Because it means a whole lot more to me than that. So respect it, and don't you ever, never, ever get it twisted. It's not easy leaving your broken soul open out there, heart in shreds, tattered book pages blowing in the wind, the whole damn world can see. I'm just trying to open up a little and understand you, by helping you to open up a little and understand me. Because you see, we're not that different. We're alike in more ways than just quite a few. Whenever I hear your stories, you reveal parts of me.
That's why we're here, because words, 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 the love for all of this, and all of us coming together and seeing these beautiful representations of Queens in all these different ways. It's just incredible. It's exactly why I wanted to do this. So thank you guys for making this possible, seriously. Nancy Agabian with Heightening Stories Workshop.
I don't know about you, but I'm an introverted writer. I run a community-based writing workshop from my expansive living room in Jacksonville. The story behind this is that many years ago when I first started writing, it was in a community-based workshop, a multicultural poetry workshop for women. And it gave me something that school couldn't give me, a place where people were interested in writing about race, cultural identity, and the worlds we came from. So it opened me up in a way to write about things I hadn't written about before and really changed my life. That was the place where I became a writer. I teach at Queens College and have been there about 10 years now. So when I first started teaching there and would broach professional issues with my students and how to keep your writing going, I would mention, look for a community-based workshop, but I didn't know of any at the time. So I decided to start a workshop for immigrant writers and first-generation writers to talk and write about those experiences. And it lasted about 6 months at Topaz Arts in Woodside and the LaGuardia Performing Arts Center. When something serendipitous happened and my roommate moved out, I decided this is the time for me to start a community-based writing workshop again. It's called Heightening Stories. It's for creative nonfiction and autobiographical fiction. And in those 12 weeks, we cover both craft and content topics that are based on what people really want to work on. I survey them and they tell me what is important to them.
All right, poetry teachers, NYC, Megan DeBello and Dan Dissinger.
So I'm going to start with the question because I think it's really important. So my vision for PTNYC, for short, is that we have this community, but we expand it, right, at New York City as a whole. And my goal is to start a school. I want it to be a multidisciplinary school. I don't want there to be boundaries. I don't want people to have degrees in order to teach there. I want it to be passion-based. PTNYC is an organization that I had founded about 3 years ago. I graduated from graduate school out of Europa. I came back to New York, where I'm from, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do with my life? I have this poetry degree. The reality was I had to start something myself. And so about a year ago, Dan Dissinger over here, who runs this kick-ass in stereo press online literary journal, found me. And he lived down the block from me, amazingly. And so out of the woodwork, people started contacting me, and this community just started growing. We started doing events at Socrates Sculpture Park. We did one at the Bookstore. And the thing is, we are teaching classes currently at the Bower Poetry Club, and hopefully we'll be teaching them in Queens as well. But it's all about this community, right? And not really defining what it is, but growing it. And not limiting anyone, but incorporating every art.
I think the main thing is that the best part about being part of this group, especially as a collective of performers, is that when we do perform, it is together as well. So we perform with the 3 poets up at the same time, bouncing off of one another. We have the musicians there, the fashion designer selling her stuff in the space. So it's really all happening at once. So it's not very everyone's sitting there just waiting to hear the next single performer. Everything's kind of going on.
Last but not least, before the final announcements, please welcome Emily Herzlin, who does mindful writing workshops and other classes and workshops in there.
Wow, hi everybody. I am so honored that Audrey asked me to speak here. I'm a pretty recent Queens transplant from the Upper West Side, and I teach creative writing, and I'm a writer, and I also am teaching mindfulness, and I'm doing my training in mindfulness-based stress reduction through the University of Massachusetts Medical School. And what I'm really very interested in is how to bring mindfulness practice into our lives as creative writers, both for inspiration and also just for mental health. So I think a lot of people think that meditation and mindfulness is kind of about like closing in and like shutting out all this stuff in the world, but it's actually really about opening up to our experience both around us and within us. And I think that can really be very helpful to us as writers, observant people, introspective people, dealing with emotion, sense perceptions, our environment. So it's really been a fun exploration. I led a series of workshops with Mission to Ditmars this past summer, and it was awesome. We did a mindful walking workshop in Gantry Plaza State Park. We did a writing workshop on the NQ train, silently. And we also did a mindful writing and eating workshop at Martha's Country Bakery, and writing about food, which was delicious, obviously. And I'm also teaching at the Astoria Bookshop, shout out to Lexi, and also some creative writing workshops every other Sunday, and those are drop-in and by donation. A range of topics. The next one is mystical poetry, so feel free to come by for that. And I'm also teaching an Intro to Mindfulness workshop at the Astoria First Presbyterian Church on Broadway. So we have 2 more sessions of that. Also drop in, feel free to come by. And I'm just really looking forward to connecting with as many of you as possible. And I'm kind of a wandering teacher, so if anyone just wants to put something together, come chat with me.
Emily mentioned working with Mission to Ditmars. They actually really wanted to be here. They're another organization that you guys should check out. They're on the page as well. They're a theater arts collective, and they have 2 really great programs going on right now. One of them is the Propulsion Lab, and it serves emerging playwrights from the Boro. And I don't know if Tyler is still here. There you are. Tyler is actually in the Propulsion Lab right now, right? And the other thing they have is a Launchpad reading series, which is a reading series of new plays by Queens playwrights. And it's really wonderful because that's a whole other, realm of Queens writing that we don't usually get to see except in like a traditional theater format. Because Mission to Ditmars was founded by playwrights and directors, they have a really great sense of how to answer the needs of those kind of artists, and they're really cognizant about creating a safe and productive environment to propel those plays. I also have a reading series It's pretty sporadic, but the fun thing about it, there was just too much going on tonight. I did want to do an exercise with you guys. What we do is reading and live writing, and some people here, actually these two sitting right next to each other, were my happy victims of this. And basically the idea is I want to showcase writers in their usual form with their polished and their published work, and then also see what they can do on the spot. So basically, I pass out slips of paper to everyone in the audience. They can write whatever they want. I don't censor it. We put it in a bag, and these poor souls read their regular work, and then they reach in the bag, pull out something, and they have to go and write about it, and then share it with us. And it worked out amazingly, which is a testament to how incredibly talented my friends are, and how incredibly talented people in Queens are.
I just wanted to give a quick plug. We definitely want to keep the conversation going, right? And to become aware of everyone's events. Definitely check out our website and also check out queensartexpress.com. You guys can post all the events that you're putting together and check out the other ones that other artists are doing in the area.
One last thing in the spirit of Queens and coming together and writing, this is a piece I wrote recently. Sometimes you can't conceptualize. Sometimes your blood is vibrating in your veins, and you need not so much the Holy Ghost, but the force with which you throw yourself to your knees to snap the breath back into your lungs again. Push the feeling into the tips of your tingling fingers again. Remind yourself for the 1000th time, ad infinitum, just why you believe. This is why I drag body with soul each morning. This is why the brightest notes in the symphony make me cry. This is why leaves on trees rimmed with street lamp gold become the halos in Byzantine paintings. And my God, I have tried to sit still. I have tried. But I am made for this. My heart was meant to burst. My heart was meant to swell. My heart wants incredible, violently joyous, magical things. And you can't make me feel like a fool for releasing my ties with this, the chain gang linked to each tick of the clock, because I know, I swear it with each breath that passes through me. I am standing at the prow of this vessel, sails unfurled, compass spinning. There is nothing else to do but be free. All of you, this is a testament to all of us and everything that we can come together. We are the creators. We are here in our community. Please, let's create the things that we want to be a part of. Let's do this together. Let's talk. Let's continue this.